2 days ago, I spoke on stage at Awesomeness Fest. I'd been nervous for a while and I'd been preparing this speech for weeks. And in my head, it was perfect. I had stories that I knew would move the audience because they moved me. I was going to talk about stuff that made me cry, to be honest. And every time I told it, it moved me to tears. I was going to talk about some powerful distinctions and concepts that I've been researching and teaching. And before the event happened, I came and stood on the stage when nobody was in the room so I could feel what it would be like to standing in front of almost 500 people. And then the moment came and I'm caught up on stage and the speech begins and I catch myself. I catch myself going into my head whilst it's happening. And the story that until now had moved me to tears every time, I could feel I was present to the story, but the tears weren't coming. And then I'd catch myself looping inside my head about what was going on in the moment whilst I was speaking. And so I couldn't be as present as I wanted to be. And as I would catch myself not being fully present, I'd be aware of that and in judgment of myself in the moment whilst it's happening. And then I'd realize I didn't know what I was going to say next and where it would come from, and just trusted whatever came through in the moment. And it was messy and uncomfortable up here in my head, because the speech finished and I heard some applause and I began to walk off stage when it dawned on me that the applause hadn't stopped and that people were standing. And I had what's called a standing ovation, but it's the first time I've said those words because I couldn't really take it in. And I made myself walk back on stage and receive. Because I know that when people are acknowledging you, they want to know that their acknowledgement has been felt. And I know, because this was part of my very speech, that it's hard for me to receive. I just wanted to make that real. Because for so many of us, when we're thinking about speaking in public, we're afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of speaking my truth, because if I speak my truth, you might not like me. I'm afraid of speaking my truth because then I'll stand out. And throughout most of human history, if we ever stood out, if we ever spoke our truth, if we ever put a stake in the ground, people were killed. Even in this very day and age. Look at what happens if on the internet you speak your truth. You get these trolls who say vicious, vitriolic things about you. And I stood up and spoke my truth, and it was edgy, and I felt it, and I got caught up in the moment and would spin out of that. And I felt myself where I got afraid. And then I came off stage. And despite a standing ovation, despite the feedback, the acknowledgements I'd get from people in the minutes and hours following, I spent the next 2 hours straight in my head full of judgments, because the speech I wanted to give, the speech I planned, didn't match up to the speech that came out. The fact that it didn't matter to them, the fact that they didn't know what I intended to say, was irrelevant up here. All I did was spin in this spiral downwards. This spiral downwards of where I should have gone, what I should have done, how I could have been better, how I could have been more impressive. And I'm speaking that out for me right now so that I can let that go. And I'm speaking it out because maybe that's a place that you go to. Maybe there's a place you go to where you judge yourself. Or the moment you've done something that actually is impressive out there in the world, could have an impact, does have an impact, all you're present to is the ways that it didn't. What could be possible for you? What could be possible for you if you began to look at the ways that you do have an impact? What could be possible for you if you began to look at the ways that you are acknowledged, that you have succeeded? What could be possible for you if you owned the impact you have in the world? And what could be possible for me if I began to do that for myself too?